You call your dog's name. They look up and then look away. You pet the couch beside you. They stay on the floor. You reach down and they let you pet them, but something is different. The lean isn't there. The tail moves, but slowly. Their eyes don't hold yours the way they used to. Nothing dramatic happened. No fight, no injury, no obvious change in routine, and yet something between you feels different, quieter, more careful, and you can't explain why. You started wondering if something was wrong with your dog. What's actually happening is that your dog is telling you something is wrong, and has been for a while. Most owners move through a familiar sequence of explanations when this happens. The dog is getting older, must be under the weather. Going through a phase. Having a few quiet days. These explanations are reached quickly, and honestly, they're reached because the alternative is more uncomfortable. That the distance isn't physical at all. That it's relational. That something in the bond itself has shifted. But these explanations, as natural as they are, leave the most important question completely unasked. Not what is wrong with my dog, but what has my dog been reading in me? Here is the part that changes everything. Emotional withdrawal in dogs is almost never internally generated. Unlike humans, who can become distant due to entirely internal states, depression untethered from their environment, existential fatigue, simple introversion, dogs do not self-generate emotional distance from people they are bonded to without an external cause. What looks like your dog pulling away is, in the overwhelming majority of cases, your dog mirroring a shift it has detected in your emotional availability, your consistency, or your energy. Often weeks before you've consciously registered that shift yourself. This is where the misunderstanding runs deepest. Your dog didn't change first. You did. From inside your dog's experience, something in the primary attachment relationship has become harder to read. The signals that previously meant safety and connection, steady eye contact, relaxed body language, unhurried touch, a predictable emotional tone, have become inconsistent, distracted, flattened. Your dog hasn't decided to withdraw. It has recalibrated, pulling its emotional investment slightly inward as a self-protective response to an environment that has become less legible. What you experience as rejection is your dog doing something far more sophisticated than you might imagine, protecting the relationship by not overclaiming a connection that has recently felt uncertain. Research on canine social referencing helps explain exactly why this happens. Dogs continuously monitor their owner's face, posture, and emotional tone to calibrate their own behavioral responses, a behavior documented extensively by Marola and colleagues in 2012. Dogs are among the very few non-human species that look to human faces for emotional information as a primary orienting behavior. This means your emotional state isn't background context for your dog. It is foreground data processed continuously, used to construct your dog's moment-to-moment felt sense of safety. When that data becomes inconsistent or emotionally withdrawn, your dog's attunement system produces a matching withdrawal. Mirroring works in both directions. What your dog is actually doing when it stops seeking proximity, avoids eye contact, or accepts touch passively rather than leaning into it. Behavioral scientists call this stress-related disengagement. It is a self-protective regulation strategy seen across social mammals when a primary bond relationship becomes unpredictable. Your dog is not sulking, it is not punishing you, it is not indifferent. It is managing its own nervous system in response to an attachment environment that has shifted. The withdrawal isn't emotional absence. It is the behavioral surface of an animal actively working to maintain internal equilibrium under relational uncertainty. The science goes even deeper than behavior. Research on long-term dog-owner pairs has revealed something remarkable. Over time, bonded dogs and their owners develop synchronized cortisol patterns. Their stress hormone levels rise and fall in parallel, not because of shared external events, but because of shared emotional attunement. This was demonstrated by Sunman and colleagues in 2019, and the implications are significant. A dog living with an owner experiencing prolonged stress, emotional flatness, or relational withdrawal is itself running elevated baseline cortisol, not from a single incident, but from sustained co-regulation with a distressed system. Your dog's emotional distance is, physiologically, your dog absorbing what you're carrying, and eventually needing to set some of it down. The pattern of canine emotional withdrawal follows a recognizable sequence when examined carefully. It rarely appears suddenly, though it's almost always perceived that way. It builds across days or weeks of subtle shifts. An owner preoccupied with a phone during walks, emotionally flat during greetings, physically present but psychologically somewhere else, moving through household routines with less warmth and less eye contact. The dog's withdrawal is the lagging indicator, the visible symptom of an invisible accumulation. Understanding the timeline reframes the experience entirely. The dog's distance isn't a new problem, it's the delayed report of an older one. Before going further, one distinction matters enormously because withdrawal can also signal something medical, and that requires a completely different response. Relational withdrawal looks like selective disengagement. Your dog still eats, still responds to the environment, still shows interest in certain stimuli, but pulls back specifically from close interaction with you. Medical withdrawal looks more global: appetite loss, lethargy across all contexts, complete unresponsiveness to things that previously excited them, and often physical symptoms. If you're seeing that broader picture, a veterinary visit matters and should not wait. Knowing the difference protects both the relationship and your dog's health. From an evolutionary standpoint, this behavior makes complete sense. In ancestral social environments, a group member whose behavior became erratic, emotionally unavailable, or unpredictably dysregulated represented a survival liability. Animals that learn to modulate their attachment investment in response to behavioral inconsistency in key social figures survive more effectively. What your dog is doing, that quiet recalibration, that measured emotional step back, is not betrayal. It is an ancient, adaptive response to a question the nervous system is asking: is this bond still safe to rely on completely? Now, two myths that most people hold, and that make this harder to address. The first: if my dog is distant, I should give them space and wait it out. Passive waiting, without addressing the underlying relational shift, can allow the withdrawal to deepen into a chronic pattern. Your dog needs consistent, calm re-engagement, not more distance. The second: dogs don't have emotional moods. This is just a phase or personality trait. Canine emotional states are neurologically documented, hormonally measurable, and behaviorally consistent. A dog that has become emotionally distant is communicating a real internal state, not performing one. The research is clear on what actually works. The single most reliable pathway back to emotional closeness with a withdrawn dog is not increased stimulation, extra treats, or forced interaction. It is owner emotional regulation and consistency. Dogs respond to the quality of presence, not the quantity of contact. An owner who returns to unhurried eye contact, calm touch, and predictable warmth, even in small daily doses, gives the dog's nervous system exactly what it needs to begin re-engaging. You don't need to do more. You need to be more present. A useful practice then: stop watching your dog and start watching the interaction. Notice the quality of your eye contact during greetings. Notice whether your touch is present or absent-minded. Notice whether your dog initiates contact and what you do with that initiation. The dog's emotional distance has a mirror in your own behavioral patterns, and finding it doesn't require self-criticism. It requires honest attention. Most owners, once they begin looking at the interaction rather than the dog alone, recognize the shift they've been living inside without naming. Here is what the whole story comes down to. Your dog's emotional distance is not indifference, not aging, not a mood, and not a mystery. It is one of the most precise and honest forms of communication available to a creature that cannot use words. A behavioral report, filed quietly, about the quality of the emotional environment you share. The science confirms what the behavior reveals. Dogs are not passive recipients of human emotional life. They are active, continuous, extraordinarily sensitive co-regulators of it, absorbing what you carry, reflecting what you project, and adjusting their own emotional availability in direct response to yours. When your dog feels far away, before you ask what changed in them, ask what changed in you. The answer, more often than not, is already there. Your dog has been holding it for you. Has your dog ever pulled away during a hard season of your life? And did you recognize the connection at the time? Tell us in the comments. And next we explore something that might surprise you: why your dog stares at you while you sleep, and what their brain is actually doing in those still, silent moments.